Right. So I don't know quite what the correct invocation is. For many of you, this may now be your actual first formal introduction to Sanskrit grammar, having picked up bits here and there. Actually, you see, Mariana's getting really excited by that. Come on, everyone else look a bit excited about your introduction to Sanskrit grammar. I'm going to make a confession to you. Some people say I have to make a confession. Oh yeah, thank you, some excitement there. Some people say I have to make a confession. I actually voluntarily make this confession. I don't have to make it at all. There's a certain nervousness because this is the first time. I mean, I've done a lot of language teaching over the last, goodness me, more than 50 years. This is the first time I have ever had to talk about language to such a large number of people. I see 55 people attending. Normally when I'm teaching language or anything, I do like to have it so that we can I interact with all of you individually, ask questions, test your understanding. I'm not sure if it's going to be feasible. I will maybe try it a little bit. And if we do get as far as the exercises a few pages on, I don't know if we will reach that today, but I might even pick upon a couple of people. Treat it, by the way, as a great honor if I pick on anyone to perform and answer a question. I am going to pick on the only two people that I recognize here. I mean, I can't see you all. Thank you for lighting your screen up, Oka, because you were going to be, yes, I've got you there. You were going to be one of the ones I was going to pick on. Mariano, of course, is the other two of my Pali class stalwarts that I've known for a long time. And as we go along, I'm going to try and devise some way that there is real interaction. I'm getting to ask you all questions. I'm never going to force somebody to perform if they don't want to. No, so there will have to be some way that we will try and, as it were, have a group of people who are prepared to be asked to answer this. What does this mean? And then I might say a sentence with a deliberate error and say, tell me what the error was. Or if you've got a sentence written down in front of you, I might alter one word and say, right, with that one word altered, what does it mean? But hopefully I'll try and get some interaction going as we go along. That's when we get to the exercises. But I'll start off just by going through the first, just the initial pages of lesson 1 of the Eganus Sanskrit grammar. Now, I don't know whether you've all got the printed book, which is available on Amazon. It's fairly cheap. For those of you who don't, I'm going to share screen now with the PDF version, which is freely available. And you've got the if you can see my screen, there's the what is it, internet address for it there. This, I'm not quite sure how to enlarge the page with it in the way I've found it. And also I noticed actually with Odin when we were going through this a while ago, that this PDF copy is not always perfectly done, and sometimes bits are missed off the bottom of the page in this PDF version. So if at all possible, those of you who got the printed book, you don't need to worry about the PDF at all. If at all possible, I would urge you to get hold of the printed book. Another advantage of having the printed book is that it will enable me to have my iPad screen up without having to switch between one and the other. As you've already seen, I keep forgetting I'm writing on the iPad, and I have to be reminded that I'm not showing it. So we go through very quickly just and I'll make a few little comments as we go along, just going through and I'll get out of this PDF as soon as I want to make an iPad note. So the opening words, it looks as if words are missing off the edge of the page here. Sorry, is my screen shared? Can you all see it? Okay, good. So in Sanskrit, each letter represents one and only one sound. Great, okay. That actually is very good news indeed when you consider how many sounds can be represented by individual letters, say in English, where because we have historical spelling, the spellings have remained the same, whereas the pronunciation has changed over the centuries. Although some of you have said, "Ooh, this Devanagari script looks a bit complicated." Well, yeah, there's a bit to be learned. You'll get used to it. However, the good news is that once you have learned the script, if you see any word written, you always know how to pronounce it correctly. That's the great advantage of the Devanagari script. I'm ignoring here the accents in Vedic, which have actually virtually become obsolete even in classical Sanskrit. So we don't need to bother with those. Actually, even in Vedic texts, the accents are marked. So the good news about the Devanagari script, and indeed when you see a word transliterated, there's only one correct way of pronouncing it. So each letter represents one and only one sound. Varna is look at this word, varna. Sorry, I meant to share screen. I've just written the word varna. Varna, according to Thomas Eganus in this book, means a sound. It does indeed mean a sound. However, the original meaning of the word, the root meaning of it, is a color. So just the grammarians, as it were, borrowed the word varna, meaning color, to represent a sound. Now, I'm going to go down a little rabbit hole here. It's not in Thomas. I'm going to go down it simply because it's a fun rabbit hole. Those, as you get to know me better, you know, I've got an entire rabbit warren of little rabbit holes around. Serendipity. Serendipity is that gift, even grace, heaven-sent grace, of just being able to find things when you aren't looking for them, just finding the right thing at the right time. Serendipity. And it comes from the old folk tale, the princes of Serendip, who had this wonderful knack of finding just what they needed at the right time. The princes of Serendip. Serendip is an old word for Ceylon, Sri Lanka. And another word for it was the Golden Island. Now look at this, varna, color. We know the root su, meaning good. Subhashitam, a good saying. It's the word for a prophet. Sugato, the well. We have tathagata, the thus gone. Sugata, the well gone. This prefix su. And one way of saying the word go, suvarna, which means with the prefix su, meaning good, is cognate, by the way, with the Greek eu, meaning good or nice, euphony and so on. Suvarna, beautiful colored, that which has a beautiful color. Suvarna was one of their words for gold. I mean, karnaka is the normal regular word for gold, but suvarna, that which has a beautiful color. Suvarna. And the Sanskrit for island is dvipa. So an old word for Sri Lanka, Ceylon, was the Golden Isle, the Golden Island, Suvarnadvipa. And as the centuries went by, and with phonetic mutation and the purity of sounds getting lost and eroded, Suvarnadvipa became Serendip. Suvarnadvipa, Serendip. So when it came into this folk tale in translation, it was the princes of Serendip. So here we are with serendipity. We see that word varna appearing. So right, back to eagerness. It says in English, the letter A may indicate many sounds, not so in Sanskrit. Alphabet is systematically arranged according to the structure of the mouth. So in the alphabets that we use in the West, the same applies to the Hebrew alphabet and the Arabic alphabet as well. The letters are a bit of a jumble. Why is it A, B, C, D, E, F, G? I mean, why that order? There's no obvious reason for it. The order of the Sanskrit alphabet is arranged by the mighty grammarian Panini, of whom we will be hearing more. And the Sanskrit alphabet is arranged in order of where it's produced in the mouth. For example, start with the vowels. Let's just ignore the vowels for the moment and look at the consonants. The first consonant in the Sanskrit alphabet is a k. You say k, then k, g, g, ng, all produced at the same point of articulation. That's where organs touch each other, parts of the vocal cavity, the oral cavity touch each other. And then from the k, and then the next one forward is the ch, the ch, j, j, nya. And then we come a little bit further forward to the ta, ta, da, da, na. Little bit further forward again to the ta, ta, da, da, na. And finally to the lips, pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. So progressing from the back of the mouth to the front of the mouth. And the same with the vowels, with the pronounced from the back of the throat, a, then I, U, a, I, U. And there is the anuswara, the M, often written as an M with a dot. In fact, in the Sanskrit syllable Om, it's often given as the progressive creation, a symbol of creation. That the first is A, U, M, starting at the back, then in the middle A, U, and finally Aum, from back to front, encompassing everything. A bit like the Alpha and the Omega of the New Testament. I am the Alpha, as in the first letter of the alphabet, and the Omega, the last letter of the Greek alphabet. So Aum. So that's the order of the Sanskrit alphabet. We'll be dealing, of course, in much greater detail with that. And so there are two, it says, two basic divisions to the alphabet: the vowels, the swara. Swara just means a sound, swarita, sounded. And the consonants, the vyanjana. And the vowels can be either short or long. Hrasva, let's call this up again for you. I got it. Yeah. Sounds can be either hrasva or dirgha. Dirgha, long. This is another word, you see, because in Pali, hang on, let's get it back to my screen. Sorry, it lost it. Here we are. Here we are. You see, dirgha means long. But you all know that word in its Pali form. So in Pali, just drops the R. Digha is in the Digha Nikaya. The Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, and so on. So Digha is long, Hrasva short. Short vowels are held for one count. Let's pull you back to here. Sorry, short vowels are held for one count. This is where my arrow is, the matra. Matra actually is from the root ma, meaning measure. And the normal form in which we find it is a neuter. Here, matra in linguistics is used as a feminine noun, matra, but matram is a unit of measurement, a matram, a measurer, which of course we use in modern English as well, in a slightly different form. Only a slightly different form, because in Greek it's metron, and in English it's meter. So when we use the word meter, it's from that same root ma in Greek, me, meaning to measure. And a metron is a unit of measurement. Notepad, sorry, thank you, Odin. There we are. So, sorry, matra, ma, that's the root to measure. Matram, Greek, metron, modern English meter. It's that same word with just slight differences. Incidentally, the maya, often translated as illusion, from that same root, means that measuring out. It means from that unit point, the central point, out comes the maya, the out measuring, the flowing forth that we have in Hindu philosophy. So anyway, back to grammar. A short vowel is held for one count, a matra. Long vowels are held for two counts. Incidentally, in modern English linguistics, modern European linguistics, this what is in Sanskrit is a matra. In modern English, we use the word amora, which is the Latin word meaning a delay, or the length of time taken to do something. And to demur, for example, is to delay, to stop something. Moratorium, when you stop something happening. So the mora, so matra is the same as a mora, meaning it's a measure of length. So some vowels are called simple, shuddha, and others are called complex. Sorry, let me get back to our eagerness for those who haven't got it. Some vowels are called simple and some are called complex. Simple, actually the word shuddha, the root shud, and the past part just means pure or clean. So shuddha means pure, how clean, a simple vowel. We have, for example, the Ashwaghosh's work, in Pali, Visuddhi Magga, the path of purification. That's that same Suddha. My Pali student, any Pali student will know that the sound sh in Sanskrit doesn't exist in Pali. So very often the only difference between a Sanskrit word and a Pali word, if there's a sh in it, will be that it becomes a s. So in Pali, Suddha. That's why we have Visuddhi Magga. In Sanskrit, it will be Vishuddhi Marga. So either the vowels can be simple, that's Shuddha, pure, or conjoined or complex, Sanyukta. The reason I wanted to say conjoined Samyukta, because that Samyukta is etymologically the same word as conjoined. Conjunctus, samyutta, conjunctus, joined together. Those who know me well already from the Pali classes will know that I'm very, very keen on going into the etymology of these words. Some people may have started off by finding it a bit boring, but so often you find that, aha, this is a word we already know, a word we are using in our modern language, whether it be English or any of the other modern European languages, even Russian. So many of the words we use can be traced directly back to the etymological equivalent, the historical equivalent in Sanskrit and pre-Sanskrit in Vedic. So, for example, those who didn't know yet that yoga is the noun. Sorry, let me call up my. So again, sorry about that. I forgot my notpad. Samyukta yoga. Yoga, the root yuj to join yoga, just means unification or joining. And the Latin jungere, to join, as we have junction. And even our modern English word join via the French joindre from jungere. So I'll be going on and on about etymology just to show you that we aren't, what we're learning looks like a dead language, but it still lives through our modern speech. It helps you to remember the vocabulary as well. So we've got these vowels here. Let me go to back to Ignis. The vowels are pretty simple, actually. Then there's no particular sound in Sanskrit that's difficult. You just got ah, I, u, r. Okay, there's a little bit tricky. R and l. Those are slightly tricky. Even modern Indians aren't totally agreed how you pronounce the r. Some will pronounce a r as a r, others as a r. So others as a ru. It doesn't matter terribly much. We don't precisely know. We've got a pretty good idea. I just tend to follow the pronunciation of the modern Northern Indian Brahmins as the one likely to be closest to the old speech. So we would say Sanskrit or Sanskrit. In English, we say Sanskrit, but Sanskrit. The complex vowels, I just whip through this really. This is E and I and O and Au. Paragraph 4 gives a bit about Vedic Sanskrit. We won't deal with that now because we will. It gets a little bit complex, but for example, if you're reading Buddhist texts in Sanskrit, you won't need to know anything about these Vedic oddities, because all of the Buddhist Sanskrit texts are either written in pure classical Sanskrit, a more developed form from the old Vedic, or what's known as hybrid Sanskrit. In these classes and in with this Thomas Eganis grammar class, and with the texts that we're doing, the Bodhicharya Avatara and other texts we may move on to, that'll be simply plain classical Sanskrit, so we needn't bother about Vedic. Now, here's on Thomas Eganis on page 3, here's the pronunciation of the vowels. Please totally ignore this. So if the O is pronounced like the English O in Pole, well, nonsense. It's an O sound. Eganis has written a brilliant grammar, but there are certain things. I look, sorry, Thomas Eganis. I need to advise students to ignore that. Like the A, look, A like the A in gate. Well, come on. We don't say Veda. It's Veda. So just whip through these vowels. A, I, U, R, E, I, O, and Au. The diacritics, the diacritical marks, I've done, and I think it should be on the resources page on the Buddhist Society's website. I've actually done a separate video on the diacritics and what they mean. Diacritics, I'll just very quickly explain, is from the Greek word diakrinain, meaning to distinguish, just to distinguish between one thing and another. So a diacritical mark is a mark that you put over a vowel, over or under or by a vowel or consonant to distinguish it from another value. So for example, back to iPad, we have in transliteration now, we have ah. And now we want to write ah. Well, how do you distinguish between ah and ah? Well, you distinguish it. You diacrinein in Greek. You make a diacritical mark. So you just put a long ah. That means the diacritical mark is you distinguish one value of ah from the other value ah, and you get the same with the t and the da, and so on. Of course, in the Devanagari script, every single sound has its own letter, so these diacritical marks aren't needed. So a vowel by itself, or a consonant or a group of consonants followed by a vowel, is called a syllable. Looking at Eganus, called a syllable, the akshara. Kshar is one of the words meaning to split. If it is akshara, the unsplittable, because in Sanskrit phonetics, each syllable is treated as an unsplittable unit. So akshara is an unsplittable. You don't need to burden your memory with all this now. We get on to the fun bit in a moment. So page 8, Sanskrit is written in the Devanagari script. Deva, probably all know, it means a divine being. In fact, our word divine and deva, it's the same root. The Devanagari script, the script of the city of the gods, or the city of the immortals. A very common word you will learn. If you don't know it now, if you don't know it before, you do now, is nagara, meaning a city. And you can make an adjective out of it by lengthening that first. So nagara, urban, urbs, urban, nagara, nagara. The word for script is lipi. And so the feminine, it's a feminine word. So nagara, make the feminine, nagari. Nagari just means urban, the urban script. And the Devanagari, the god urban script, the city of the gods, the script of the city of the gods. I've actually tried to check where this phrase came into use and what it really means. But I can't find a definitive answer to it, how it got its name. In paragraph 9 here, the ideal way to learn the script. Well, you've all got your own learning styles. Some will see it once and get it. Others use flashcards, all sorts of different ways. Or, all sorts of ways students have by, writing it in toothpaste on your bathroom mirror and that kind of thing. I haven't tried that one yet. Maybe I should. Now, to the letters of the alphabet. Here we have the first two letters you see on the page, a, and going from left to right, ah. It looks slightly complex. It's but the good news is nobody ever writes it like that. Hang on, just trying to flip my, here we are. There we are. I'm going to go back to my iPad page now. Look, I apologize, this is getting a bit clunky. I'm not Mr. Technology, and I'd like to make it flow more smoothly. There we are, that's the best I can do. We've got a rather complex looking character that I'm going to write for you in the complex way. That's the ah. The good news is I've never actually seen anybody writing it in handwriting. You very often see it in printed books like this. I've never seen anybody handwriting it like that. For example, let me give you an example in English. Have you ever, anybody, I bet you haven't seen anybody handwriting the letter G like this. and yet that's how it's printed. Nobody bothers to write it like that. We just write it like that. So this letter A is much simpler. In ordinary handwriting, just write something that looks like a 3 like that, then a joining line, a link line, then the upright. Simple as that. That's your letter A. Typically, in writing the Devanagari script, you are going to see 3 elements. Not every single letter of the script goes like this, but most do, and it's a good basis to start learning. Let's take one very simple letter, even though we haven't got there in the book yet, but just as an example. Let's take the Devanagari letter for T. Watch me writing that. Then an upright. Now, a very, very large number, the majority of letters of the Devanagari alphabet have an upright and a crossbar. Look at this letter for M, the M. That is the characteristic part of a M, and then the upright and the crossbar are not the characteristic parts of it, but complete it. So look, that is the characteristic part of the M. That is the characteristic part of the T, which I've just written now. That is the characteristic part of the N. So to complete the letter N, this now makes na, not. A B, that is the characteristic part of it, followed by the upright. That is the full letter P. When you're writing Devanagari, the standard way to do it is you write the, so to speak, characteristic part first, followed by the upright and the crossbar if there is one. So this our letter A, you'd start off by writing as an A. It's just joined to the upright. A. To make it a long A, it's very simple. You write the same letter with another bar after it. So this is A, and that's A. Now I said that not all letters have an upright and a crossbar. The next letter on our page, I'll just flash up the page for you, is E, and E sorry, I've just managed to, oops. So Mr. Clunky again, here we are. E and E. For E, you write the characteristic part first. It's just this wiggly bit. There's no upright bar, so it's just the crossbar. This is the letter. Sorry. I meant to be writing it for you on iPad. So do it again. Watch me. It's E. That's the short E. And you just make it long by making exactly the same shape with this hook on top. E, E, E. Go to the U. Again, we write the characteristic shape first. Like E, it doesn't have an upright, just has a crossbar. Let's do U. And the long form is the same, but with a tail there. That is U. I'll write it again for you. U. U. So those are 6 of the letters. Those are the ones that Eganus gives in his lesson 1. And I think it's several lessons on that he actually starts. We actually start the sentences in the Devanagari script. He's just introducing the letters bit by bit, but we go straight into the grammar in transliteration. So now going to the beginning of the grammar proper. Come back to him. The Sanskrit roots are divided into 10 classes. Those of you who were with me at the Bodhicharya Avatara lesson just before this one, you'll have heard me talking about different conjugations. In fact, the more correct word to use is, let's use the Sanskrit word gana, meaning a class or a group. They've divided into 10 classes, gana. Now again, you see, I bet there are some of you who think that you don't know that word. But you already do, because we've all heard of the Indian god Ganesha. That's the elephant god. Because this word Gana, written Devanagari like that, this word Gana it means a group, or in the animal kingdom, it means a herd or a flock. Sorry, thank you, Odin. Thank you, Odin, reminding me again too. There we are, Gana, Ganesha, and I've written Gana in Devanagari as well. Odin is helpfully sending me these text messages when I forget to show my screen, but if somebody whose face I can see on my screen kind of flashes a torch at me, I'll see it instantly. Desmond, you have your hand up, sorry. You're muted, Desmond. Oh, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now, thanks.
Yeah, no, that was actually from the very beginning of the class, because there were a number of things. One is the word varna.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that used for the word caste.
Indeed it is.
And I thought the association between color and caste was a very interesting one, because of the fact that the Vedic invaders were paler in color than the Dravidians. And was there a link between the two?
There is a blatantly racist link, distinctly skin color based. And even in modern India, the most common word for a caste, what caste is jati, which literally means birth. From we've just had at the root jan, to be born, jati, be birth. But also another word for caste, even in modern India, is varn, in Hindi, varna, meaning color. So you were classified according to your skin color in the very, very primitive times. You get the invaders speaking Indo-European language, speaking Proto-Vedic, who were probably from the Central Asian steppes, coming down into India, where they found people of darker skin, and they, the conquerors, would distinguish themselves from the people they had conquered and in whose lands they had settled by the varna, what color you are. And so yes, there it is. There's this kind of overt distinction of people into hierarchies of value by skin color, and it's overtly there.
There's another question, and that's to do with the word mora.
Mm.
And I wonder, is there a link between that and mores, mores, custom?
Mores. I
Because
don't think so.
It's interesting because mores is then related to morality, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
And you do have this thing. I take, it's used colloquially as the measure of a man.
Oh, the mora. That's a most interesting point.
The measure of a man, or the measure is the custom that you use to for your community. It links your community, doesn't it? All the measures and all the things that you use. I just wondered, was there a link?
My first reaction is to say, not as far as I'm aware, but it's something that I'll check. That's a very interesting point. Because there's mora and or tempora or mores or o times, o moral, o times, or tempora or mores. Let me check that out in the works of reference, and we can deal with this next time. Hopefully, I should have a definitive answer then.
Well, thank you, James. Thank
right.
You.
So back to gana. Gana meaning a group or herd, flock, as in animals. So the gana and isha, the word isha means a lord or a god. So the gana isha, which by Sandhi becomes Ganesha, means the lord of the herds, therefore the king of the animals, the god of the animals. That's the one that is depicted in Hindu iconography as the elephant. That's the Ganesha, the herd lord. So anyway, so this gana basically meaning a group. So they're divided into 10 classes, these 10 ganas, in order to form the present stem. It says here we will study, let's go back to Egenes, we will study 4 classes whose stems end in a. Now I've said the root dhatu, dhatu, sorry, call up. This again. I'm writing dhatu. In science, and in chemistry in particular, dhatu is the word meaning an element, as in a chemical element. And it's the same word that has been used ever since the time of Panini. He used the chemical analogy, the irreducible form of a physical substance, like gold cannot be gold as an element. It's not a compound of other substances, gold, the element gold. And Panini used that same word, the dhatu, an elemental form, for the what we call the root of the verb. So it's the element. In other words, the verb can't be broken down any further. And it mentions here, as I mentioned to you before, that square root sign, we use that square root sign to indicate it's the root or the element. That's where when we use the word gum, when we write gum with a square root, means we are talking about the root of that verb from which we get the actual word forms, gachati, gata, gamana, and so on. So here in Egenes, I won't call up the page now because I'll reproduce it more or less exactly on the iPad. We have the root gum. Now, the meaning of that root is to go. In fact, it's cognate with our English word come and go. Come and go both come from the same root. So gum, come or go. It's etymologically, it's the same word. Now, just as in English, it happens that sometimes it very often happens that a verb will change its form from a root form to a conjugated form. Not so much in English, but very much so in the modern languages derived from Latin and so on. So normally you'd end, so he does something, it's the ending ati. So you might expect to see he goes as gum ati. However, this gum root is just a little bit irregular because it changes to a ch. So gachati. So we have the stem gacha. When we talk about stem, the root you've got is the irreducible minimum. And when we talk about a verb, we talk about it in its root form. Gacha is a stem, meaning it is the form on which an entire set of conjugations is based. So the present, the imperfect, the imperative, and the optative, they're called the present system. All verbs within that system, present, imperfect, imperative, optative, will be formed from this one stem, gacha. So once you know the stem gacha, then you just add the standard endings to that stem, and you've got it. So you need to know the root and the stem. Now let us form an actual verb. Gachati, he, she, or it goes. Gachati. From gum, root, gacha, stem. Now an actual word, gachati, he, she, or it goes. Let's now go through the conjugation of a verb in the singular. The plural comes in, I think, the next lesson. Oh, a bit more fun for you, by the way. You've got to learn the entire singular and you've got to learn the entire plural. Now, the added bit of fun is that Sanskrit also has a dual. So singular is for one. Now, in European languages, we think a plural is two or more, but not in Sanskrit. Singular is one, okay. Plural is three or more. But if ever you're talking about two things or people, there's an entire separate set of conjugations for the dual. That applies to nominals, that's nouns and adjectives and so on, as well as verbs. But don't give up. It's actually, once you got through the nitty-gritty of learning the endings, they're so regular then throughout the whole of grammar that once you've done the hard grind to begin with, you get a high degree of regularity later. That's one of the characteristics of Sanskrit, actually. There's quite a bit of front-loaded nitty-gritty learning of endings, but once you've learned them, there's such a high degree of regularity afterwards that it does pay off. So patience will pay off here. So let's look at the conjugation of a verb. In the Western languages, we tend to go first person, second person, third, first person, I, we, second person, you, third person, he, she, it, they. They do it the other way around in Indian grammar. So what they call the first person is he, she, it, and the middle person is you, and what they call the last person, Uttama Purusha, is I. There's a convention that Eginus uses, that many grammars use, that I propose to use, is that when we're actually conjugating a verb, we follow the traditional Sanskrit order. So we don't say I go, you go, he goes. We'll say he goes, you go, I go. So we'll follow the traditional Sanskrit order, but to avoid confusion, we'll give them our standard Western names. So third person, we'll stick to the third person, he, she, it, and so on. And if you look at this page, there where I'm putting my arrow around, that's how he's done it. Third person, called third, then second, then first, simply because that's the order, gachati, gachasi, gachami. So let me write those for you. Sorry. Mr. Clunky strikes again. Let's get back. There we are. I spoke about the stem, gacha. So for he, she, or it goes, it's gachati. You, singular, go, thou goest. Gachasi. And I go is the word you already know because we chant Buddhang Saranang Gachami. There we are, Gachami, I go. And those of you with familiarity with Latin and the modern languages derived from Latin will see these same characteristic consonants that there's a T, the letter T for the third person, you see? There's the letter S in the second person, and the letter M, not always, but very frequently found in the first person. And even the most basic Latin verb we learn in our lesson 1 of Latin, it becomes amo, not amam. But thou lovest, you love, amas, it's that same S. Amat, he, she, it loves, it's that same T. So these characteristic letters have remained there in the Latin languages. And the Russian speakers, we might have a Russian speaker with us. You'll see that's from, say, for example, znać, to know, znayet, he knows, znayesh, you know. So we have these endings at the asi-ami. Note, by the way, that for the first person, this a is always lengthened. It's gachami. So gachati, short a, gachati, gachasi, short a, but gachami is a long a. In case you're thinking this is a bit much to remember, now I've got the good news. The particular gana, the particular form or group of verbs, this is class 1 we're looking at here. Classes 1, 4, 6, and 10 are all broadly the same. They form the vast majority of all verbs in Sanskrit. And once you know how to conjugate one, you know how to conjugate them all with, I think I'm right in saying without exception. If there are any exceptions, they're very few. So that's why I was saying, once you learn these endings, that's it, you've got it for all time, for all verbs. And even verbs of the other conjugations, they aren't kind of totally wildly different. They all follow broadly the same pattern, but with slight variations. And as we go through them one by one, hopefully you'll see them falling into place. And so I don't promise that you will see it all falling into place, but I promise to do my very best to present it in a way that you'll be able to say, aha, we see the logic. So I'm going to try and make it the entire complexity of Sanskrit verbs, indeed all of Sanskrit grammar, to show that it's not just random complexity. You know, there's a beautiful internal order that shines through it. And one of the reasons, you know, the great hero of all linguists was Panini, you know, several centuries before Christ. I mean, he was just so way ahead of his time. He was the first person on this planet, centuries ahead of others, who really methodically kind of laid out the rules and the patterns for the entire complexity of his language. I mean, it's just one of the most enormous intellectual feats ever done on this planet is the grammar of Panini. But we'll do bits more of that as we go along. Hopefully you will come to love Panini as much as I do. So going now to page, almost there. Let's just look at page 5. Oh. Here it is. Right, so this is just the vocabulary. Fairly simple now. We'll get a lot more later. Here he just gives them this vocabulary, the root gum that we've had, and the root and the stem gachati, and the cha, the interclinable cha. Let me just move back to iPad. Cha means and. It's always joined to the end of the word. Cha is directly cognate with the Latin que, meaning and you of course have the word et, meaning and, which is used in Latin the same way as English. But you, for example, you could say, the SPQR, the old Roman motto, senatus. You could say, it would be correct Latin, senatus et populus Romani, the Roman Senate and people. In fact, you say senatus populusque Romani. That's SPQR. It's the Roman legions carried on their banner. So that is the que, the cha. And it's indeclinable, says here in again, placed after the last word of the series and so on. And there's one more word, which is the root prach. We're nearly at the end of the time, so that becomes prichati. Why does it do that? Why does prach become prichati? I'll quickly tell you now before we wind up. This actually is a class 6 verb, which conjugates exactly the way that the class 1 verbs, the standard verbs, conjugate. But in Vedic, the stress was on the ati. The stress was on the ending. So the vowel or semi-vowel and vowel just tended to be softened. So rather than prachati becomes prichati, just shortened. Don't bother to take that into your heads now. We've come to the end of two hours. I'll deal with that next time round. It's actually fairly simple once you get the hang of what underlies it. So we've just coming to the end of the hour. We can start next time, just a brief resume of what we've done. And next time round, we can start in the sample sentences and then the exercises. What we could do, I've just had an idea. I want to get you all involved in having a go on the exercises out loud in front of everybody. On the other hand, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, say, right, you do it now, because you might not want to for all sorts of different reasons. So I'm tentatively proposing that once I come to the point where I say, right, now we're going to do the exercises, if your face remains visible on my screen, that means you are putting yourself in the firing line and you're liable to be asked. If your face goes blank and I can't see you, I won't take that as a wimping out. I'll take that as I'm gathering my strength for next time round. So try me next time round. So I see somebody clapping. Thank you very much, Al. Good, let's do that. So let's see how it works next time around. When we come to doing the exercises, those who are willing to have a go, just leave yourselves visible on the screen. Those of you who want to glide into the background, simply press whatever button it is that hides your face. So I have Roger, was that a question, Roger? I saw a hand being raised. Okay, right, sorry, okay. Good. Well, here we are. I hope that's been of some use. And next time round, we'll delve even further.
Well, thank you very much.
Sorry, were there any questions left over? I mean, I don't have to rush off immediately. So if there are any questions, I can certainly take them. Either now, or they can wait until next time round, as you like.
Can you?
So I can't hear.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, here we are. Yeah.
There was somebody here gave some helpful advice, and that is to the use of a book. It's from. He says, for a beginner like me, I found a useful Sanskrit alphabet study book to help with me writing the script. It's on Amazon by Meda Michika. I hope this is of help. So that's to be shared with everyone from Aiden. And then there's another comment from Delia who's saying, I thought about memento mori. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but it might. I wanted to share that with you. I think she was talking about the question I had to you, James, about mores and morality, measure.
We've got three entirely different more roots here. Yes, there's the mora meaning a delay or a period of time. There's I think, but I'll check a separate root where we've got mores, meaning your mores, your morals, and the root mre in Sanskrit and mor in Latin, meaning death. And the infinitive is mori. So memento mori just means remember death, remember dying, remember that you've got to die. Memento mori. So we've got these three roots with a mra or more sound.
I think though, can I just quickly come back on the Greek mors? I think it's more to do with customs of the people rather than morality.
It is, yeah. I mean, it was originally customs.
It has a slightly different, meaning.
That's right, sure. I mean, because in these old societies, there was if you stepped out of line in ordinary behavior, it was regarded as rather an outrageous thing. So your mores was how people behaved. You followed the customs.
Yeah, you followed the customs.
And if you did something different, that was very badly frowned. It was rather immoral. You were stepping outside the customary acts, the customary way of doing things. So that's right. It originally meant customs, and of course now the idea of the moral idea of personal behavior.
Yeah, that's why I thought it might have been linked to measure, because measure is something that you share. You see.
The measure of your conduct.
The measure of your conduct and the measures that you use in a community have to be the same. If I buy some rice from you, I want to know that I'm getting the same, amount of rice. For
that's a very interesting one. Let me see what I can find about that as well. Also as measure.
Yes, as a measure.
Yeah. Let me see what I can find out about that in the meantime.
Yes, thank you, James. Thank you.
Right.
It was a very enjoyable class, James. Thank you.
Okay, I hope it was some use to you all. I've certainly thoroughly enjoyed it. I was thinking, my God, when am I going to get through 2 hours of this? And I've enjoyed it so much myself. The time has flown by. I've really loved it. Much looking forward to next week.
Yes, looking forward to seeing you then.
Great.
And thank you all for participating in class too.
Okay, and thank you. And some of you, I hope I will see when we resume our Pali tomorrow. Yourself, Orca, of course, I hope. And Mariana, hopefully, will be with us as well. Okay, great. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Bye. Goodbye.